Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00. This is my vlog series, and today we look at Forerunner Hierarchy. Forerunner society was divided into a number of different classes known as rates, each rate specializing in a particular field of work. The builders, who designed most Forerunner technology from ships and weapons to their various megastructures, were the highest rate and wielded the most political power. The second rate were the miners, who obtained construction materials for the builders' projects and were responsible for planetary and stellar engineering. Below the miners were the life workers, who were responsible for medicine and biological research. The juridicals were a rate whose duties encompassed legal matters within the ecumene. The warrior servants served as the primary fighting force for the ecumene, while the engineers maintained technology and machinery. Adolescent forerunners, known as manipulars, were not associated with any particular rate. However, upon maturing, each individual forerunner would be assigned to a rate, mostly in accordance with the rate of their parents. For example, Born Stellar Makes Eternal Lasting was expected to become a builder like his father. The builders, referred to in some formal contexts as the Builder Corps, were the highest rate of the Forerunners, considered to be the most powerful in terms of intelligence, wealth, and political power. As their name suggests, the builders were responsible for designing and constructing the majority of the Forerunners' advanced technology, including ships, weapons, and a myriad of technologically advanced structures and objects seen throughout the Milky Way galaxy, most notably the Halo Array. The chief of the Builder Array and all of its guilds was known as the Master Builder. The last Forerunner to hold this title was Faber. In an archetypal sense, the builders demonstrated an economically motivated and ambitious mentality, marked by a constant pursuit of more wealth and power. Certain builder families, such as that of Born Stellar Makes Eternal Lasting, were so wealthy they could own entire planets for their own personal use. One such world was covered in mega-scale architecture that served as a testament to their owners' engineering skill and power. Builders were drawn to the Forerunners' ancient past, with some believing that Forerunners had long earlier possessed superior technologies and sought to recreate this past greatness with their own technological achievements. Such beliefs were also the basis of elements in the rituals of the secret societies that existed within the Builder Rate. These rituals had traits of the Forerunners' past beyond their recorded history, including symbols based upon designs of 10-million-year-old warships, which had otherwise been long forgotten. As manipulars, builders memorized their names of their ancestors, going back millions of years. These would be recited as part of a prayer meant to be spoken when faced with certain death. Miners were generally seen as tough and pragmatic, and their manner of speaking was characteristically direct, lacking most of the tact that the other rates were used to. Miners were most comfortable when on a planet or working with planetary materials. The miners were responsible for the artificial formation or destruction of planets and the manipulation of stars, usually to harness them for energy collection. Minor stellar engineers were colloquially known as plasma jockeys. Their planetary engineers were capable of creating planets by melting down an asteroid field and shaping the resulting mass into a protoplanet which could be fully cooled in under 10,000 years. They would also occasionally destroy entire planets to gain access to the resources within. X-50, a satellite of Dratheus 5, was an example of a minor installation used in planetary engineering. The artificial moon was equipped with an energy beam capable of dismantling its parent planet within hours. Although miners are suggested to have been capable of even more energetic planetary destruction, for more local mining operations, miners used mining ships, which could rapidly excavate large masses of minerals and ore by using powerful energy fields. Life workers were a rate in Forerunner society. They specialized in all living things and medicine, including experimenting with new life forms. Paradoxically, despite the ideological basis of the Forerunner's mantle to protect all life, the life workers were rated rather low, below miners but above warrior servants. The highest possible rank achievable by a life worker was Life Shaper. The most prominent life worker was the Librarian, a life shaper and one of the most powerful life workers to have ever lived. The life workers were responsible for creating and maintaining the ecosystems on Installation 00 and the Halo Array, this being part of the librarian's pact with Faber, the master builder, providing a contingency plan for sentient species in the event that the Halo rings were used. The ecosystems were used by the life workers to research, store, and index species collected from numerous worlds across the galaxy in a conservation measure. For 9,000 years after the end of the human Forerunner Wars, Earth, then called Erde-Tyrene, was an experimental planet under the care of the librarian, who ensured that humanity would recover from their forced regression and prepare them for their role as reclaimers with her Gesh. Life worker forms were typically graceful and tall compared to the other rates. Some types of life worker armor enabled floating as opposed to walking. This is seen quite prominently with the librarian and her life workers on Omega Halo. Life workers also employed a type of Huragok specializing in organisms and medicine rather than machinery. Juridicals were a rate in Forerunner society. They were charged with the investigation of criminal actions by citizens of the Ecumene, as well as preventing crimes from being committed. The head of the juridical rate was known as the Master Juridical. Many juridicals belonged to Catalog, a group of evidence-gathering agents who were all viewed as the same individual and were connected via the juridical network, which spanned the Ecumene and was used as a means of communication and information sharing among Catalog and other juridicals. Juridicals often used the domain as a means to store and investigate material relevant to cases, enlisting the service of Haruspis when seeking to access specific information. Due to their closer connection to the domain than Forerunners in general, Juridicals were noted to be conservative in their views. According to Catalog, Juridicals also had a tendency of becoming more cynical and aloof with age. As a result, many older Catalog units relinquished their evidence-gathering duties in favor of tasks in which less interaction with the other rates was required. While the Forerunners preferred to see themselves as peaceful by nature, warrior servants were ruthless in executing warfare against enemies of the Ecumene, as they believed that defying the Forerunners was to show contempt towards the mantle itself. Although their services were vital in maintaining galactic harmony, most Forerunners viewed their purpose and practices as contradictory to the principles of the mantle. As such, other rates looked down on the warrior servants, who mostly kept to themselves as a result. In battle, warrior servants wore varying types of fighting units or combat skins, the War Sphinx being an example of a medium-sized suit. Warrior armor was designed to optimize itself to counter enemy weaponry. This ability was capable of making their armor virtually invulnerable to repeated discharges from Forerunner infantry weapons. The warrior servants operated the Forerunners' most prominent battle fleets, comprising warships such as the Fortress-class vessels, dreadnoughts, planet breakers, and picket cruisers. Warriors employed extensive drone support in the form of dedicated monitors and sentinels, in addition to the ancillaries of their battle armor and ships. In fleet engagements, individual warriors could be assigned control to over 1 million automated weapon ships. Warrior forces were organized into large-scale legions which possessed a number of subordinate attack squadrons. As with other rates, warrior servant forms were shaped based on qualities deemed most useful in their role. To best suit fighting and warfare, warriors were more powerfully built and more robust than the other rates. While it was rarely necessary to engage in close quarters combat in actual warfare, warriors still possessed remarkable physical strength. The augmented mental capacity of warrior commanders allowed them to perceive reality in many separate reference frames with alternating flows of time whilst sharing sensory input with their compatriots. Engineers were a rate presumably focusing on the maintenance of structures and machinery. They were the only rate not represented in the Capital Court. Engineers are not to be confused with the Huragok, sentient biological machines created by the Forerunners. The Engineers are a rate unto their own, but are otherwise unknown factions of the Forerunner Ecumene. The Theoreticals were a rate that existed over 1 million years before the Didact was sealed in its cryptum. after one theoretical named Boundless persisted in studying a certain star in the Spider Nebula of Path Chthona, despite warrior orders. She was eventually punished by the Juridicals and sealed within a faulty cryptum that caused her death. The entire theoretical rate was then forcibly merged with the Builder rate. Forerunner culture was highly stagnant. The fundamental aspects of their society, such as their rate-based social hierarchy, remained unchanged for millions of years. The Forerunners had a rigid social structure where one's position would be determined mainly by their rate, part of a complex system of different social classes mainly based around a particular occupation. Cultural practices and customs varied by rate and position. Generally, Forerunner culture was full of formality and ritual, particularly with the Builders, the highest of the rates. Forerunners placed a great deal of value on family lineage and tradition, and one's rate and social standing were largely hereditary. This is not to say that the Forerunners of one rate could not receive mutations from another. It was just largely unseen, and due to their hierarchical structure and established superiority of certain races, somewhat frowned upon. When growth through trial of change, born to a builder family, chose to become a life worker instead, she was treated as an outcast by her family. In the same breath, born stellar makes eternal lasting, born to a builder family, received a brevet mutation from the Erdidact on Earth, which facilitated Born to become the Isodidact, taking up his predecessor's position as head of the warrior servants during his exile, and a member of the Ecumene Council. He returned to a position of power that had been somewhat disgraced by the Erdidact, demonstrating that a being of mixed rate could be favoured by the Ecumene, rather than shunned. Thanks for watching. Stick your comments down below and I look forward to what you have to say. I want to give a quick shout out to my patron, Miguel Lopez, the holder of the mantle. If you like the Halo lore discussed to insane levels of detail, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you're told the second a new video hits the shelves. If you really love the channel, consider heading over to Patreon and support the channel over there. It would mean the world to me and would free up more time for me to put into this Halo content and other Halo related goodness. Take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.